Welcome back to the Dallas-Fort Worth Entrepreneur Mastermind Podcast in living color. Today we have the owner, right, of Worksuites, Mr. Howard himself. Can you tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got to your situation today?
Sure. Let's see. I've never had a job. Just always kind of done little entrepreneurial things. Yeah. And gosh, how far back do you want to go? In high school, my job in the summer was walking around, knocking on doors, painting addresses on curbs.
Oh wow!
And
usually reserved for gypsies, correct?
Yeah, my buddies would go work at a bike shop all day for $6 an hour and have a bunch of taxes taken out. And I went out from 5 till 8 every afternoon and made like $200 cash every night. And I was like, I'm not doing the whole job thing.
That's right. Yeah. So you learned at a very young age.
Yeah, and then out of college, I had a business partner, and he and I started a pickup and delivery laundry and dry cleaning service for college campuses. And it was we'll probably get more into that later, but it was a really interesting business. It was
some unique discoveries probably involved.
It was a hard way to make a living. We did that for 3 or 4 years. I think the first year out of college, I probably worked 100 hours a week. I think I made $11,000 that year. But it moved. Every year was a little better than the year before, and we ended up selling that. Anyway, our office in that business was in an executive suite.
Okay.
And so then we ended up buying out our landlord in 2001 and kind of getting into the business that I'm in now. I've been doing it for 19 years.
Have you always been in the Dallas-Fort Worth market? Is this where you're born and raised?
Yeah, born and raised. So born and raised in Dallas, went to college in Ohio, got married, graduated. Basically, I graduated from college in May of '97. Started our first business in June of '97. Got married in August of '97. Got pregnant in like October of '97. Bought our first house. It was all those major life milestones were within like 12 months of each other. I was a very, very old 22-year-old.
Awesome.
But it's fun.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that always interests me is it appears that a lot of entrepreneurs, that spirit, that business ownership ideal is built in at a really young age. And it sounds like it was like that for you. Did you have any examples that you grew up with that you think maybe formed that character?
Not really. A little bit. I would say my former business partner and his dad worked for himself, and most of our early ideas, we used to walk around selling mistletoe at Christmas time. We were 12 and washing cars together on the block. We were 11. Most of the ideas were him. Kind of had his strengths and my weaknesses sort of thing, and so he would come up with a lot of good ideas, and I'd shoot some down, and we'd settle on this one and do that sort of stuff. But yeah, it was just just the thought of working for somebody else just didn't seem as exciting to me as going and making my own stuff happen. And once you've made little things happen, just making the next step bigger doesn't seem like, impossible.
It seems a lot less scary.
Once you've done something, anything, no matter how small, it's much easier to take that next leap, I think.
So that's sort of a case for business owners and entrepreneurs that have that spirit to start young.
Absolutely. Right? I used to be real involved with a group called Young Catholic Professionals, where I kind of mentored young Catholics in their 20s, and then I'm also real involved with the college that I went to. We go back and do a mentoring day every year. And anyway, I talked to a lot of them about entrepreneurship, and a lot of them have this drive, and they think they want to do it, but they want to wait. They want to wait till the perfect time. Everybody wants to wait.
Just like kids and marriage.
Exactly, like all that. And everybody's waiting for the perfect time. And the problem is, your expenses and life creep. And, I've got friends who have been wanting to do their own thing for 20 years, but now they got 3 private school tuitions, and they've got a $12,000 monthly fixed expense, and they can't walk away from that at all. So, I started the first business when we were 22, and I didn't need any money. I didn't have any money. My wife and I, she was a school secretary. She made $24,000, and she was my sugar mama, and that's how it worked. And so
snuggle up, get your money.
We lived off of her salary pretty much. But there's no time better than when you're young, because it just gets harder and harder as you get older. And so I tell everybody, if they're in high school or they're in college, and they want to start this, they want to start that, even though I'm thinking to myself, that's a dumb idea and it's going to fail, that doesn't matter. I still encourage them to do it, because I think it's still a good idea to fail at something. Lesson. Yes, just start something, and you can. I just feel like you can really tell the difference between people who have been in the driver's seat of anything, even a small something, versus those who've always been a part of an organization and risen up. Even if they're pretty high up in a pretty big organization, there's just a different mindset about somebody who's kind of pushed the ball across the finish line and spearheaded something.
Right. So you were 22 when you started Worksuites. Is that
22 when I graduated college and started the pickup and delivery laundry and dry cleaning service. And
so that was the first. That was the first real business venture that you dove into.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I don't think you'd mind me telling this. We showed up on campus the first year, and we were at SMU and TCU and UT Austin.
Okay.
And we were these outsiders who had no connection to the schools at all. And we show up and we think we have this great idea to pick up and deliver the college kids' clothes. You know, we sign up for a year, they pay $500, and we wash their clothes every week, something like that. And all of a sudden we show up on campus and there's this competitor. We're like in the back room with this move-in, and
There's another
laundry service doing the exact same thing out of nowhere.
I did not see that coming.
I didn't either. And he's all in the front. He's all in with the university, and he's master of PR. And the first year, like, he's here and I'm here. But we were better at kind of running the service.
Okay.
And so, like, the second year was like this, and the third year was like this. And the guy who ran the other service was very, he was just good at PR. But like I said, our business, we were just better at running the business. And so then we bought him out for next to nothing. The last time I saw him, he was in my living room, and I was trying to negotiate a very small settlement. They were basically going out of business anyway. So then he tried to start like 4 other things, and I was like, you know, I don't think he's going to succeed at anything because that guy it's just about the publicity and not really about running anything. And then he founded Tom's Shoes, and now he's worth $500 million. And like
Same guy?
Yeah, so don't ask me who's going to be successful and who's not going to be successful because, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say, well, it was just a cover for drug sales.
No, the exact opposite. The point is, keep starting stuff and keep trying. Like I said, that guy failed at 3 or 4 things, but always just tried big things, and it ended up hitting a big home run. Yeah.
So that was your first business venture. How long did that last?
So we did that from 97 to 2001.
Okay.
Then in 2001 is when we officed in an executive suite, a shared space provider. We bought out our landlord, and within about 6 months, we're like, this is a lot easier than washing 500 kids' underwear every night. Like, this is way better. So we decided to try to sell that other business. Kind of ironic, so the first time we tried to sell it, it was not a big deal. We were trying to get a couple $100,000 or something. And we tried to sell it to a friend of mine I went to college with, and his dad was going to possibly bankroll it, but his dad didn't want to play broker in the deal, so he had his business partner kind of play broker in the deal.
Okay.
And the deal fell through, and it didn't make. But that relationship that his dad's business partner that was going to broker this deal that fell through, he and I met while doing that. Fast forward 18 years, and he's now my business partner, owns a third of my company, and was my funding source to buy the rest of my company. And so it's interesting the way business things come back around even a decade later.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The one thing that I've realized is as long as you're continually putting yourself out there and shaking the hands and meeting the people and being genuine about your interests, it seems like it sort of happens in front of you a lot of the times, right? Do you have a feeling that's how it worked for you?
Yeah, that, and like I said, just owning something, owning anything. The people who own stuff meet other people who own stuff, and then this guy wants to put, another thing, I have a good friend who's a private equity guy. When I was looking to buy out my business partner to kind of do this growth thing that we're in the middle of right now, it seemed really daunting to go raise millions of dollars. So we never used debt before. We didn't have any money, and wasn't sure how to do it, right? And my buddies in private equity goes, dude, money's like water. There's money everywhere. What's rare is the opportunities. And that was sort of a mindset switch for me to think, about, wait, no. I was basically going to people like begging, please, I'll give you half my company for, nothing, or, sort of terms. And then when I sort of had that little mental switch, I was like, wait a minute, I'm the prettiest girl at the prom, not them. I can just kind of say I'm picking and choosing here. So, and then I ended up having, quite a few good offers to finance once I kind of realized that good business ventures are harder to find than money sources.
Exactly, right. So that was the first Worksuites? Was that the brand you started with that first building?
No. So the first location we did at Mockingbird in 75, our name at the time was Meridian Business Centers. So it was just a traditional executive suite, just like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Regis. Just
heard of them, yes.
Traditional executive suite. We were Meridian Business Centers from 01 until 18. So we did that for 17 years, and we were just a traditional executive suite. The co-working thing has kind of started to come up, but there were 2 clear buckets. There was co-working centers, and there was executive suites. And the executive suites were old lawyers and boring dark hallway doors.
Yeah.
And the co-working thing were these real hipster, millennially, bring your dog to work, kombucha, beer keggy kind of places, and there wasn't much overlap.
No middle ground.
No, somebody here wouldn't want that one, and somebody here wouldn't want that one. But now you're starting to see more kind of middle. And when we rebranded and sort of repositioned ourselves in the beginning of 18 to Worksuites, it was to do that, to really kind of try to find that middle ground, halfway between, say, like a Regis and a WeWork in style.
Split the difference, find something that sort of fits the general appetite, right?
Yeah, and I think there's an appetite for all the different flavors of it. I think it's just an underserved niche.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of demand for private offices where it's really professional, where you want to bring clients. It feels professional. It doesn't feel like a frat house, but yet it isn't just a dark, depressing hallway of doors. That there's natural light and there's some energy and there's some common areas and things like that. So that was and then plus Worksuites is. Our old name was Meridian Business Centers, which is a lot of syllables.
Just rolls right off the
and
tongue.
It tells you nothing about what we do. Whereas right now, we try to get on the side of all our buildings Worksuites and 8 letters or whatever it is. It's pretty clear, what we did.
Right. So from 2002-ish, when did you expand into the second location? What was that sort of? Because a lot of folks are starting their first business. They're having that initial success where they know that their idea is profitable, and then the next big question is expansion. A lot of people are going to have the feeling that maybe you did. I'm ready to sell half my business right now just to grow it. Can you tell us a little bit about the growth?
Sure. So 2 things on that, I guess. One, I would say we always decided from early on this was not going to be a mom and pop deal. It was always, we always had visions of grandeur, right? So as soon as we took the first location, as soon as we made sure that it was working, okay, time for number 2, time for number 3, time for number 4. So we added 1 a year. I think we did first one in 01, second one in 02, third one in 03, and then I think we had 3 the year after that, and kind of really started to ramp up the growth a little bit. Our first 7 or 8 locations were, the business was changing at the time. It was, it used to be back in the 80s and 90s, these things were all owned by older ladies, and they had a team of female secretaries who typed documents for men in the back who didn't have their own computers or type. It was a very Mad Men-ish kind of 60s dynamic, right? And it was shifting, obviously, and so around the turn of the century, around 2000 or so, is when it was becoming less of an office space and typing business and more of like a telecom and office space. It was fax machines and copiers and long distance and T1 internet.
Right, because this is sort of following the internet growth, the technology boom, and you had an obligation to keep up with it, right?
Right. So we bought out a lot of those old kind of mom and pop ones that were run in kind of the old model, and we just sort of transitioned to the new model.
Oh, that makes sense. So the infrastructure was already there. Right. You didn't really have to change the floor plan of the building. It was already pretty much designed for what you needed. Let's put some better paint. Let's get some new furniture in here, and then it fits your brand.
Yeah, and we always were big on. I'm a very conservative guy, so we grew without debt. It was always just kind of out of cash flow. How much can we sack away? How much can we, so we probably could have grown a lot faster if we were interested in just increasing market share, getting visibility. But we didn't do any of that. It was always just kind of a debt-free, really slow and steady wins the race kind of thing, which, served us well. We probably could have gotten a lot bigger faster, but it just doesn't fit with kind of who I am. I feel like there's no right answer on that. I know most of your big success stories that you see out there, there's a lot of leverage. There's really swinging for the fences. They're trying to capture market share at all costs on that. That just doesn't jive with me. It's a little bit like my wife we have 7 kids, and the kids are amazing, and so people come to my wife for advice all the time, and she's always saying, like, you just have to do what works for you. Some people, a really structured thing works, then roll with that. Some people have to be totally bohemian, roll with that. Like, you got to do what works for you. I think it's the same in the, in the business thing.
Right. So you had this model, it was working, it was expanding well. I'm curious to know how the Worksuites is surviving in this current environment. We see a lot of movement away from the standard office building because of COVID-19 and everything else. Is there a boom in Worksuite style co-working spaces right now?
No, I wish.
Right.
No, but everyone says there's going to be one, and it's not been a bloodbath. It's just that. So what happens in this time is you have a lot of small businesses that office with us that have basically just gone out of business. You have a lot of people who now can't afford an office. They'd love to have one. You also have people coming in who used to be in big space or downsizing in.
So it's just sort of both.
You're kind of trading out. Now there is a pain period there, and I think a lot of people in our industry are going to suffer right now because our profits are down for sure because there's a time lag there between when guy A leaves and guy B comes in. But everybody's saying kind of whenever we're on the other side of this, whether that's spring or the following spring,
or
who knows when it is. That there'll be a big boom in this because it will just accelerate the adoption of flexible workspace because less and less companies are going to sign on for a 10-year lease knowing what their head count's going to be for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So they'll be willing to pay a little premium for flexibility, which
Right.
I'm ready to ride that wave. I hope it comes tomorrow.
Yeah, and the other thing that I see, I'm sure you've heard all this before I've ever mentioned it, but it's never really been a better time to be an entrepreneur in a lot of ways, right? Because you can start a business with a laptop, and laptops are cheap right now. So if all you need is a space to go work in, you would think that something like this is booming.
And our most affordable plans, I mean, what's been really booming since COVID are two things. Our virtual office plans, which are, $50 or $100 a month, depending on the options. You kind of have a corporate identity. You office out of your home every day, but you come in for meetings, and you receive your mail here, and you put this address on your website and stuff like that. And then we have what we've called hybrid co-working, which again, for a lot of freelancers, has been a big thing, where you pay $200 or $300 a month, and you have a shared. You basically can't leave anything here overnight, but you can come use a private office for 1, 2, or 5 days a week. And so a lot of those kind of really affordable entry-level office things have kind of exploded. And I think the word hybrid is kind of the buzzword of 2020, right? Like that, everybody's looking for a hybrid office solution, a hybrid school solution, a hybrid everything solution.
That is tough, right? I mean, that's something my wife and I have talked about is our day-to-day schedule is always different. So it's really hard to find a place that's going to accommodate, the 2 days of the week that we really work hard, and then the 3 days of the week that we spend more time with our kids, and how do we balance all that time? So completely understand that. Moving away from Worksuites itself, I'm curious to know, you mentioned you're very active in mentorship. What role has that played in your life? Sort of what motivated you to get started in mentoring other folks, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I guess in terms of the business side of it, I'm just honestly one of the reasons why I do, not to go back to Worksuites, but one of the reasons why I do what I do. I mean, you probably see our little logo here on the cup that says "Work is good, where you do it matters." Because I really believe that work is a part of who we are as humans. I think I'm not to get too religious-y, but there's a cool writing by Pope John Paul II. He talks about how work is like part of what separates us from the animals. Like even what a beaver does when he makes a dam, it's just survival. It's just like eating. But humans actually participate in creation. Like work is, anyway, I went through a period about 10 years ago where there was about a 6-month phase where I didn't work very much. And it sounds great. You make a bunch of money, and you don't have to work at all, and you go to out to the lake on the boat every day.
Yeah.
But you feel not right. Like I think working hard and accomplishing stuff is just a part of being a human in our nature. So part of why I do Worksuites is I really feel like productive workspace. I feel like if I could put 20 Worksuites in every city, like literally America's GDP would be higher. There'd be more global happiness,
It's like you have your own little finger on the scale of the economy or something, yeah.
And so back to your question about mentorship, it's kind of the same thing. Like I think that work is underrated. I think too many people think of it as this drudgery thing. They go put in their times like doing jail time from 9 to 5 or community service hours, and then your real life work. And again, I'm not someone who work matters more than family. I mean, I got 7 kids. I'm all into the family thing. But you need to enjoy your day too. Like you need to enjoy what you do from 8 to 5 too, and it needs to invigorate you, not drain you. And so I think helping people find what it is that invigorates them rather than drains them is it's invigorating to me.
I know. I think that's fascinating. One thing that I always recognized about myself, even at a very young age, is I was just generally content and happy doing most things. Yeah. So even when I was washing dishes in the back of a restaurant, I sort of enjoyed that. Every other role I've been in construction and real estate, whatever it might be, I've always enjoyed it. And I think a lot of it just does come from that feeling of accomplishment, from the labor itself. And once you tune into it, it's very nice. So I that's exactly what I thought you might say. And I was curious to know, when you sort of started this, right, you said, I have this vision. Okay, this is going to be a corporation. It's not going to be a mom and pop shop. Did you know what it would look like for you to maybe make it, right? A lot of people look at themselves and say, if I have this house, if I have this boat, if I have, 3 Burger King franchises, whatever it is, I made it. Do you have that sort of vision?
No, I'd like to say that I'm not materialistic and that stuff doesn't matter to me, but it always did. Like, of course I wanted to have the, nice car and nice house and take fun vacations. And we always have. In fact, we did it before we could afford it. I remember we went on our honeymoon. We got married in August. We went on our honeymoon to the Caribbean in August. I was making no money. I said my wife made $24,000. I made $11,000 that year. I was working 100 hours a week, and and we still went to the Caribbean again over Thanksgiving because I just needed 3 days. I'm a big vacation guy.
Yeah.
So I always just sort of, it's a little weird to say, but I spent what we needed to spend and sort of solve the problem on the revenue side.
I was just telling my wife this. This is what's that guy's name? The 10X guy. What's Grant Cardone? He's sort of an influencer in the entrepreneur space, and he always talks about how the responsible businessman would never write a check that they can't cash. And he was like, I'm the opposite. I was always writing checks, and I knew I had to go cash them, and that was a motivating factor.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I did a cash out refinance of my house and borrowed on credit cards in the first year. All these things you're not supposed to do. I mean,
right.
Dave Ramsey would hate everything that I did
Yes.
for the first 5 years or so. But then it got to the point, where I'm only going to drive I'm not going to drive a Lamborghini, right? I'm only going to drive so nice of a car. I'm only going to live in so big of a house.
Right.
I'm only going to take so many trips a year to so many places. I'm not going to buy a yacht or whatever, And I've done that. I've had that for 15 years, but that hasn't really made it any less fun to go accomplish. So I guess what I'm saying is it's not really about the spending money anymore. Right. It's about just going and accomplishing fun stuff.
Right, and that's sort of what I'm curious about, because I have a couple mentors as well, and we've had a really good year in our little real estate business. And he was telling me, he's like, you really need to get into apartment syndication. You should learn how to start a syndication because that's where the real money is. And I was like, I just don't know if that's what's motivating me, right? Mm-hmm. We're doing very well right now. We're paying off our debt. We get to go on our little trips with our kids, like we were saying. I sort of already feel like I made it. I don't know if I really need to be a multimillionaire or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I'm just sort of curious.
I would say don't.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I think it's very fascinating that everybody has their own.
Because I kind of do need to. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with what you spend. The other thing I would say is that people. I feel like there's a misinterpretation in a lot of people of do what you're passionate about. I mean, that's the whole. Everybody says it sounds so trite, whatever. And I talk to a lot of these, whether it's college kids or young adults, and they say, "Oh, I'm really passionate about ballet or basketball or travel or whatever." I'm like, well, guess what? You're never going to make any money trying to do what you're passionate about in that way.
Right.
I'm not. Am I passionate about office space? No, I'm passionate about commerce and win-win business relationships and lifting the human condition. And there's other ways to do that. I could probably find a way to be passionate about selling shoes if I found, if it was going to really be cool. It's not that office space is the end-all, be-all, or what I always dreamt of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care about that, but I do care about being excited about really kind of eating what you kill and going and making real change happen. When you get a fun idea in the middle of the night or in the first thing in the morning, like,
I'm going to pursue that.
Make it happen.
Right,
yeah. That's fun.
That's fascinating to me, too, because, a lot of people, like you were saying, will talk about, I'm going to build a passive income or something, and then I'm just going to live, do whatever I want. I always want to work. So I know I'm not going to hit a retirement age. I don't really think I'll ever, I'm 60 now, I guess I'm done, and just sit around, or whatever it might be. So I think I'm very similar to you in that regard, that I'm probably always going to be pursuing something.
Right.
And sometimes that novelty, and what I think will also play a big role is that mentorship, where you can bring other people along, help them in their businesses, etc. That'll probably be a big role as well.
I mean, my business partner, who owns a third of my company, is upper 70s, and he has got his hands in a bunch of different businesses. He's got an amazing story, done amazing things. And if you talk to him, it feels like you're talking to a 40-year-old. Because he is just always, he doesn't want to just sit there and retire.
He's got the energy.
He loves what and all of it's fun. Yeah. And it's not like he needs to have more money for scoreboards. He's got more money than he'll ever spend,
right.
But it's just about it's fun, and you're making the world better.
You need to hold something. I think it's also, so much of it is this motivation for creation. It's like, this was nothing. I showed up and now it's something. And that's...
Well, and again, I think a lot of what people misunderstand is they think of, okay, well, I'm going to do something for charity because I'm going to make the world a better place, and business is somehow inherently selfish.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. Business makes the world a better place. I mean, you look at these villages where everybody's starving or whatever, it's because of lack
funded,
right, all that stuff. So it's not this, okay, I got to pick between this charity stuff, or no, like the right, and obviously you have to do business the right way. And I'm not saying that all people in business are inherently moral. Of course they're not. There's no horrible people in business. But done the right way, it can be a total win-win for the world. So.
Well, perfect. Well, we're running out of time, but I do try to always end with one question. And that is, there's this whole new generation my age or younger folks that are deciding whether they want to commit to a big company, work a 9 to 5, get on the, retirement from the company game plan, or they're going to decide, should I build my own business? Should I be washing clothes for UTA, whatever it might be? If someone came to you and said, I'm deciding whether or not to be a business owner, entrepreneur, or work a 9 to 5, what's your advice to that individual?
Okay, I would say if you're asking that question, then you have to try it. Like you have to. You can always go get a job. It's not like you're irrevocably on this path that you can't correct from. And I also think that your generation, I'm going to sound like an old guy here, but one thing I've noticed,
Us youngins.
one thing I've noticed it's a problem with you guys, you whippersnappers, is there's this analysis paralysis. Everything's got to be perfect. I got to overthink this. I got to be super careful about that. And you just have to do it. I'll sort of, I guess, end with this, but I've been blessed to be around a lot of really successful people, both in financially successful and, starting amazing nonprofits that are changing the world, all this kind of stuff. And I used to think that success was some combination of brains and hard work. And I wasn't sure in what order. Maybe some people wanted some of the other. But I've recently realized that both of those are distant second and third to number one. And the number one trait that all the successful people that I know have in common is just this, I don't have a word for it really other than just gumption or go-get-itness or just try-itness or just lack of just courage or lack of fear of failure or whatever you want to call it.
Something in your gut, that motivating factor, right?
Well, but it's a step beyond just motivating. It's actually doing. People who actually do it. There's all these people who talk and they plan and they think and they strategize, and then there's just doers. I've got a lady that works for me, is one of my favorites. She's worked with me for 15 years, and I love her because she gets more done a day than anybody else. I'll be in her office and I'll say, okay, so can you call this person and that? And we're in the middle of a meeting, and she just picks the phone and calls. I'm like, no, I mean after I leave, not now. But that's just everything she just does, and that just action-oriented, try it. I don't care if I fail. I don't care if I look stupid. Let's do this. Like the guy who ran, like Blake who started Tom's. Just there you go.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for being our inaugural guest in your studio.
Enjoyed it?
Yeah, it was great. You're happy? I'm happy. Flip, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, brother.